be able to identify that building, that iconic building, the Central Bank of Nigeria, who everybody is looking to nowadays for their forex needs and demands. And sitting pretty right beside it is the National Ecumenical Center. That's the National Christian Center, if you prefer, for all denominations in Nigeria, which was recently re-roofed. By the way, I think the roof was recently refurbished. So it's good to bring you this shot. Good morning again and welcome. Ayo, how's Lagos?
Well, Lagos is iconic as always, but this definitely is where the money comes from, what you have on your screen at this very moment. But this is Eko Bridge. You are, of course, it's been one of the oldest bridges in Nigeria, dare I say. And of course, at a time when the Third Mainland Bridge repair work has pushed all of its traffic to other alternative routes on the mainland, Eko Bridge, Akpongbon CMS, Ikorodu Road, and all of that. Of course, you can be sure that Eko Bridge is one of those routes that's going to take quite a chunk of the pressure from the Third Mainland Bridge. Good morning and welcome. This is Lagos. I'm Ayo Makinde. And as we told you earlier, happening today is that the Federal Ministry of Works will be closing the Lagos Island Yanoworo bound lane to vehicular traffic from 12 a.m. that is today, from about midnight today, until 12 noon tomorrow. Thursday, the 7th of March, to close some of the work that it has been working on. We are advised to apply other routes, as I've earlier mentioned. This initial traffic diversion on the bridge will return after the 36-hour closure, just to take care of some more serious business.
All right, so yes, indeed, before we take you to the dailies this morning, well, Labour Party will also have their day in court. So the judgment between Apapa and Abure and some other members of the Labour Party will be coming up today. It's when they're going to decide who is the authentic chairman of the party. So all that back and forth, I guess they might just get it sorted today.
Looking forward to saying that. I also know that the Morning Brief also spoke to the spokesperson of the OB, one of the spokespersons of the Obi Date campaign on campaign finances. So Labour Party very much in the news in recent days, but certainly we'll be looking to the courts to see in whose favour that is resolved.
So we'll be back with you with the dailies in a moment. Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies this morning. We'll start with the Guardian newspaper. Consumers switch to use gadgets as forex crisis worsens tech adoption. So all that theory of psychological determinism. Who knew if this was going to be a major influencer? So I know now maybe the laggards will have a reason not to move any further. But they give you a breakdown of some of those gadgets: laptops, smartphones, feature phones, smartwatches, smart TVs, refrigerators. So a lot of people will be luxury, but to other people, essential commodity because it has to do with their job. So it depends on what side of the divide that you are on. But all the same, this is the big lead of the front page of The Guardian here today. Consumers switch to use gadgets as forex crisis worsens tech adoption. So
that is really a tough place to be. I mean, please protect your phones, guard your computers. Make sure your children don't get a hold of them, or your grandchildren if you prefer. Because if they break now, you know, they'll cost a fortune to replace.
Yeah. And speaking about the court, alleged dollar bribe, court stops Ganduje's probe. Also on the front page here.
Oh, well, take a look at what you have on the front page of New Telegraph. Also focusing on some parts of the economy. Investor confidence. Man tackles federal government over expatriate employment levy. Says 335 firms distressed. 767 shut down in 2023. Nigerian economy not in distress, Tinubu insists. Or that's according to him. Insists country on right path, pleads for patience. States, federal government attracted $30 billion FDI to issue executive order for National Police Veterans Day celebration. So it looks like they're not captured in the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. But we usually see the police lay a wreath as well. Well, hey, maybe. If that's what's going to make them, you know, happy, why not? Pages 2 and 3 of New Telegraph will give you all of the details. And of course, you also see pictures there from Baba Obasanjo's birthday celebration. New Telegraph, that's the paper I'm looking at. Well, let's leave it there for the paper.
And switch quickly to the Nigerian Observer. What do you have on its front page? It is definitely talking about something very, very concerning. World Bank decries widening gender gap as women get 77% of men's pay. Yeah, read it again. That's exactly what it says. What does that mean, really? The details on the front page. I don't know what Marquez's take will be on this, but that's the lead story of the Nigerian Observer this morning.
That's the latest economist, yeah? Okay. Look at Vanguard newspaper this morning. Nigeria must battle rising food insecurity as priority. This is IMF's take, in case you're also wondering. So there's a big deal on the front page. But look at what's beneath this one. Deadline on NIN account linkage. Most banks yet to implement directive. So that's what you see here today.
And Daily Trust is focusing on insecurity. Terrorists abduct scores of female IDPs in Borno. Ooh. That's the lead story right there. They left camp in search of firewood. That's according to the community leader. Only 4 out of 117 returned so far. Military, Borno government, mum. In other words, they're quiet. Stories on page 4 of the paper. I mean, this is Women's Month, and tomorrow will be International Women's Day, and these are the issues. The fact that for some people to eat, they really have to risk their lives. I mean, you're going to go and look for firewood. If there's no firewood, of course, there's going to be no food to cook. So this is now done at the expense of the safety of the lives of these women whom we understand have now been abducted. Silence cannot be the answer. It cannot be, the response that we get from those who ought to be speaking up on this situation. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Definitely something very concerning. But look at the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, also raising issues about hardship. Cement price, that's the focus of this Nigerian newspaper's lead story this morning. Cement price hike pushing us out of labor market. Artisans and skilled laborers cry out. That story is on page, you have the stories on pages 2 and 13, 2 and 21, beg your pardon. Reduced high costs of building materials to address housing deficit. Realtors tell FG. High cost of sugar. Kano residents resort to sugarcane byproduct Mazakwela. Well, I hope I got that right. Well, but that's the lead story of this Nigeria newspaper this morning, among several others you see on the front page.
Okay, so Buhari's, look at blueprints.
Excuse me.
Buhari's 30 trillion naira ways and means others reason for nation's woes. More so. part of what we might also be focusing on here this morning on the program as we try to take a holistic view of challenges and proffering solutions. That's a blueprint today.
We also have on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, why Africa is poor despite $96.5 trillion natural wealth. That's according to AFDB President Additional. In case you're concerned about why a continent so blessed, not just a country now, but a continent so blessed continues to remain, or is still grappling with poverty, you might want to read the story on page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune. Even better still, just wait till about 10:30 when an interview with the AFDB president will be airing. We'll leave it there for Nigerian Tribune.
All right, so that pretty much does it. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. Well, back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Should be accountable to the people. We are saying that since fuel subsidy was removed, the federal government, state government, and local government are smiling to the banks without any commensurate improvement in the lives of our people. What we're asking the government to do is to sponsor a bill and enact a law to provide security for our people. Because what we are talking about, when you are talking of insecurity in Nigeria, we only address physical insecurity, whether we should have enough police personnel and gadgets for them. What of social security? If young people are not productive, if they are not meaningfully engaged, they will take to crime.
Are they trying to deafen us?
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the issues raised by several members of the society about what they feel with the economy. Well, this morning, as you may have seen, we're joined now by Senator, but he's an ambassador as well, former Nigeria's High Commissioner to Ghana. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Mr. Shimbale. Great to be with you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir.
Well, it turns out that at this point in time, the people are feeling the economic pinch. They just wonder, in spite of the policies that may have been put in place or being planned at the moment, many say they're not feeling it. And of course, you're in the country too, and you heard a lot of some of these comments. They're rightly placed, aren't they?
Thank you for inviting me, Shimbale, and thank you, Mokbe, for having me. There is no doubt in my mind that some of this noise that we are hearing across the country are genuine. There's no doubt in my mind that some of them are genuine. But we have to be sincere with ourselves. The logical question to ask is, are we taking the right steps to get ourselves out of this? If you ask me, at the moment, the answer is yes. And when I was in the university as a freshman, we were taught something that I can never forget in Management 101. That a bad decision is better than no decision. That is, if you take a bad decision, you have the opportunity to improve on it, jettison it, or do whatever is needed to make it right. But when you don't take decisions at all, you are not doing anything. And definitely you can't put something on nothing. Now, is the noise genuine? As I've said, it is genuine. But I also ponder on so many other things. That, what? How did we even get here to begin with? Why should Awolowo's regime in the 50s be the gold standard of governance in Nigeria? It's a question that I think we need to address ourselves to. And let me use an analogy that I experienced on my way coming to your office, to your station this morning. I was approaching the flyover to turn into your office. It was not a traffic jam. It was a gridlock, complete gridlock. And we saw 2 traffic officers trying to control the traffic. But the road users were not listening to their instructions. Hence, we couldn't find a way to go. Now, some gentlemen, soldiers, came down from their vehicle to assist. Nigerians were still reluctant to follow their instructions. It took us almost about 20 minutes. If I didn't leave my house on time, I'll be late for this program. But as you have said, as a former ambassador, I'm accustomed to getting somewhere earlier than given, so that way you can settle down and be ready for whatever it is you've gone there to do.
How does it relate with this?
Because the indiscipline that has permeated the society is why we are where we are today.
How?
Serious indiscipline. God bless you. Now, if we do things in the normal fashion that things are supposed to be done, things will go the appropriate way. But when you have a society that is bedeviled by corruption and indiscipline, the two are serious issues. Indiscipline is one of the reasons why our social values have disappeared. That is why you will see children on the street having nothing to do. When we were growing up, practically almost all of us were in school. Majority of Nigerian children today are not in school. Now, on top of that is the fact that since let's say about 10, 15 years ago, the present generation have not seen anything. Those who are growing up now, they have not seen anything but violence all over the country. What is that suggesting? And that's all they know. We have a portion of this country that they don't know anything but disorderliness, violence.
I hear you quite all right, but isn't this tantamount to passing the buck? Because how does, not justifying indiscipline though, but how does the action or inaction of the citizens stop them from having uninterrupted power supply?
Thank you very much.
How does it improve the value of the currency? How does it ensure that production is the norm and companies not leaving the country? How do all those things add up?
Chamberlain, I'm not a professor in economics, and I'm not a professor in anything. But experience of life has taught me, because I'm a grassroots person. I'm not just somebody who is seated up there and looking down to understand what is happening in Nigeria. I relate and interact daily at all levels. Yesterday, I was discussing to a market, I was going with a market woman, the price of beans, gari, and I do this regularly on my own without being prompted. It has a lot to do with it. When one man sits in his room because he has stolen or acquired billions of naira and he wants to make free money, he will sit in his house and call BDC, the bureau, they change all over the place. You have naira and you have dollar, yes. How much are you selling? I'm selling it 1,100. You know what? I will buy it at 1,200. You are buying volume. Then that one will start calling all the other BDCs. He may not be able to meet that demand. He will start calling the other BDCs who have dollars to bring them at 100 naira over the prevailing price. And then who will not rush for that free money?
Are the authorities helpless?
Well, they are not. That is why, let me tell you, but are we helping them? You see, the situation we are now has come to a situation where everybody must pull their weight. You cannot leave everything to government. We have left so much to government, this is the result. It's only a madman that will do one thing the same way over and over again and expect a different result. We have allowed government to control everything. It's about time that citizens should also pull their weight. When I was growing up, in our community, we have community leaders. We have leaders that we look up to. We have leaders that your parents will tell you. In my own case, people like late Justice Neslim Elias, Alhaji Femi Okunu, late Alhaji Waheed Elias, Justice Dosumu. Those ones were the people that grew up in our neighborhood. Those are the people that our parents will use as a good example. It wasn't as if there were no bad eggs. At that time, we had Shiko, Salahu, and a host of other bad elements in the society. But they always tell you that going the path of these people is the noble thing to do, not going the other way. So, but in Nigeria of today, everybody is on his own. You don't have that kind of community.
Because government is not doing anything for people.
Anymore. That is what I'm saying. American President late John F. Kennedy said, ask yourself what you can do for your country or not what.
That's when the country is responsible.
Wait. I'm not passing the buck. I have said we cannot continue to do. The government has failed in certain areas. That does not mean that citizens cannot help to ensure that the government do listen and we have a listening government. Everything, that is why people are saying that they are making mistakes. Because it's a listening government, a government that is ready to take chances and then listen to people to make corrections to ensure that right things are done. That is the government you have in place now.
Mm-hmm. It's a long history. I mean, your relationship with the APC, I'm looking at, coming from the days of PDP and ACN in Lagos. I mean, you ran to be governor of Lagos State on the platform of the PDP. Correct. And you were one of the juggernauts who really fought the current president, and his party in Lagos State. It's interesting now that, you're now on the same side, singing the same songs. But how... this is where we all are now. It doesn't discriminate. Whether you're in PDP or in APC, if you're going to the same market, no one's going to ask you your party card before they sell anything to you. And some of the things that you have complained, and when you're in traffic, they don't make way for you if you're in APC or you're in PDP. Everybody is stuck in that traffic, experiencing the indiscipline which you have described so vividly. But some people will say that we're where we are because over the years, we've let these values erode. And that's why people have craved a change of government. 8 years ago, the APC came on the platform of change, promising to do everything differently. Shortly after they got into power, they started the campaign to change begins with me. That was their own way of trying to seek the support of the masses that perhaps we can't do this alone. But what a lot of people complain of and still complain of today is that the language which they speak, excuse me, is more speak, is more talk than action. They say one thing and seem to be doing something else. That they don't quite see that they understand that the times are tough in terms of the body language, in terms of what it is that they do. For instance, the president's cabinet is said to be, really large, which is not reflecting the times that we're in, the policy choices, simple things that could encourage us to buy the naira, to grow the naira. There are very few governors who do it. I'll give you an instance. The governor of Ogun State, from Ibikule Amosun, we've been seeing them wearing adire, and I think that sends a message to the people of the state that this fabric is what we want to promote in the state. But what are the other things that we're doing nationally that shows that we want to focus more on businesses in-house to help grow this economy?
Well, let me thank you, Mokwe, because you and I are from Lagos. And the struggle for the soul of Lagos is not the same as the national issue that we are confronted now. I may have had a different path in terms of how do we move Lagos at that time. That explains why the disagreement was so tough at that time. But what we are facing today, even from what you have said, you can see that a repeat of the same thing will also be a failure, either directly or indirectly.
A repeat
the
of
last
what?
of the same thing.
Oh.
We are all in agreement that as a nation, we are not doing well. That I think there is nobody who is saying we are where we are supposed to be. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Even a madman on the street is probably receiving less help than he was getting before now. And I hate to call names, but in 1984, the immediate past government took over government from the likes of Alhaji Jakonde, Chief Ajasin, Abubakar Rimi, late Abubakar Rimi of blessed memory, also late Bola Ige and a host of others, who today we can still make reference to their achievements in government. In fact, quite a number of people who are doing well today in Nigeria, young men, attended schools. The opportunities, let me just not limit it to school, the opportunities that they made possible. Last week, the president came to Lagos to come and commission Red Line. This Red Line is something Alhaji Jakonde will have completed over close to 40 years ago. We will have been talking about something different. Somebody came in, stopped that, pulled all of them into prison, and came up with what we can call trade by barter. At that time, returning us to those dark ages when businesses were conducted in that manner. And all of a sudden, Nigerians decided that it is that same person they wanted to lead the country. I knew at that point we were going to run into trouble. Even President Obasanjo that supported said, I know he can do security, but international politics and economy.
But the current president didn't think so at the time.
Wait. I'm coming to something. I would land to where you want me. I will tell you what you want to hear. Then became president. For 6 months, there was no government at all. The first thing they did was to say, okay, if you have a domiciliary account, you can't take your money out. Immediately, they woke up, and those Nigerians who have saved money in their own country saw the opportunity to remove their money from the system. What did they do? Everybody took their money out of the country. And we had a lot of dollars before. Now, we're Nigerians on their own. See, I love the spirit in which Ashwaju is trying to pursue everything. He's not leaving any stone. Any opportunity you see him there, to see how he can correct the situation. Because he knows that we are in a very dire situation. And you have a president who is different, who is thinking, who is looking at different manners, different approach to things. A man who developed young talents. I am one of them. I'm proud to say that. Yeah, I've had my issues with him. No doubt about that. But that impacted my life in a positive manner in terms of management of things and the way I interrogate issues. I can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
And so, wait. And now he's been here at the saddle for about 9 months now. And if you look, we were at the point of collapse economically when he took over. And what are the challenges to me? The priority now, which is the solution you are talking about. I see a situation where we must get this security thing right. There's no two ways to it. We have food in Nigeria now. We are talking about poverty. If hunger joins poverty, everything will go gaga. Because if people get hungry and there's a little money that can't even find anything to buy, we'll be in worse trouble. Now, in order not to get that, that security aspect must be dealt with seriously.
You were Minister of Defense,
Yes.
and I will certainly take you up on the issue
Minister
of security.
Of State for Defense.
Yes, you're
and then
Minister of
I
State,
spoke
you
about
at least-
poverty.
Yes, so you certainly have an idea, I mean, of some of the challenges that have bedeviled us, because these security challenges didn't start today. So you must have been privy to, you know, a few things that we've been doing before. Maybe we can strengthen, etc. But what I'm asking you, the question I was asking you was in terms of the communication. Do you think, because for some people, they think that this is still business as usual in terms of how government is still run, in terms of the lack of transparency, in terms of, I mean, the president went to Qatar to talk about how he intends to fight corruption to a standstill, and anybody who, you know, tries to take a bribe, you know, they should report them to him or something to that effect. That was what he said in faraway Qatar. But every day we see reports of corruption here within Nigeria. It doesn't seem like anything is really changing.
See, I would rather want the president to do is not to fight corruption to a standstill, but to reduce corruption to the barest minimum. There is no society where corruption does not exist. And I will want a situation, which he has also demonstrated of recent, where bad behaviors are punished. If you do the crime, you do the time. Just recently, for the first time in a long time in our country, I think the last time we saw a president sacking a minister was under Obasanjo, during that National Assembly and the then Minister of Education, if you recall. Immediately, the issue of sleaze broke out. The first thing he did was to suspend the executive secretary of that agency involved, and also the minister was also asked to vacate.
The investigation is taking like forever.
It's not. You see, I just read in the papers yesterday or the day before yesterday that the committee chaired by the Minister of Finance, that he has submitted a report, which I do believe, if you look at the schedule of the president, you and I will agree that he's been all over the place for the good of Nigeria. And getting to also attend to all important issues when you are sitting there takes some time. And I believe very shortly that also will be dealt with. You talk about transparency. I think we have passed laws to ensure transparency in government. But the political will to ensure that these things are properly activated is what is lacking. And I do believe in good time, the president will summon that courage to ensure that things are done for every Nigerian to see and believe. Because if we do government in closet, the deficit of confidence that we have will continue to be there. And when you have deficit of confidence in your own people, that's a serious problem.
Speaking about confidence,
yes,
there are a few things that are not clear to a lot of Nigerians. I don't know if you've got insight, maybe you could speak to us. Mr. Fadana, for instance, has asked the government to clarify whether or not they have reintroduced petrol subsidy, because the president did say at the time it was going to a cabal. There were certain people who were stealing and all sorts of claims. But I don't know, is there anyone who is facing the music now as part of those who were the subsidy thieves, so to speak? But we haven't heard anything. If you heard, maybe you could tell us.
Well, I'm not in government. My party is in government. But I do know this. I listened to Mr. Falana before we came on. He talked about the National Assembly enacting laws to ensure food security. I think we have laws governing that space. What is truly lacking, as I've said to you, you do come to Lagos often and to some southwest places of Nigeria. If you see the influx of young men who hitherto were on their farms, farming, in droves, now driving Okada for living, you will know how painful it is to confront the situation that we have in Nigeria today. I look at all these things objectively. I don't look at them as a party man. If you look at these things as a party person, you will not have a grip of the challenges ahead. And I'm speaking to you as a Nigerian, not as a politician. Where things are wrong, I'm trying to define them. And where things are right, I'm also trying to define them. Solutions is what we need. And my take on solution, immediate solution, which is possible, which she alluded to, about my experience as Minister of State, the Ministry of Defense. This banditry, terrorism, kidnapping is painful for somebody of my background when I look at it, and they are still prevailing as if we don't know what we are doing.
The government is too slow to respond to that.
It's not, you see, we cannot put all this blame on a new administration. That's what I'm telling you. These things would have been stopped before now. Yeah, but there was no political will.
But the government knew
to
what it was, and they said, don't worry, we will fix it.
They are already fixing it. How? God bless you. What they are trying, now they are, well, I don't want to speak to some of the things that the security people are doing. Among them, which we all saw last week, was the arrest that the NSA made of those foreigners who were also helping to devalue our currency through crypto coins and other illegal manners. That is an evidence that this is a government that is working. Now, on the side of the security, we have seen, maybe you have not, because sometimes security around us, you can't see them. It's only those who can keep their ears to the ground. That we are here, you and I are seated there, enjoying ourselves. Some people are ensuring that. It's not happening by accident. But the only time we shout security is when there is a failure. But for one failure, because I'm coming from that background, I read Administration of Justice. I worked as a probation officer in the US when I was in university. I also worked in the social service in the city of New York for about two and a half years. So I do know a lot when it comes to security.
But Senator, you also know that some of those people who pay taxes expect those officials to do the job for which they are being paid.
They are doing the job. You see, where they fail, we will knock them. But where they are doing well, we must encourage them. All I am telling you is that a lot is happening around you now that you cannot see. And I can assure you that all those pockets of this, of that we are seeing, some might be sponsored, some might be political.
You mean the protests?
I said some, no.
Which ones are sponsored?
I'm talking about some of the inflammatory talk about the economy is too bad, the country is bad, everything is bad. Those inflammatory comments might be sponsored and might be political. After all, we are in politics. And we are not in a society where, when a new government comes in, the opposition for 1 or 2 years will give space, as is done in the Western world to showcase what they have capacity to do. And in 2 years after, then they start another round of electioneering campaign and now speak to issues on things that were supposed to be done that are not done, on promises made that were not fulfilled. But you don't from day one. And don't also let us forget,
you say
all the three major candidates of the opposition
Senator,
also campaigned on the same
people will disagree with
policies.
They will disagree with you first.
That the president is working on.
Yeah.
Well, that is why we are here.
Yes.
It's about disagreeing.
I know that is going to come in, but you talked about how this voice of opposition. Some people will say the current economic situation where
I didn't limit it to the voice of opposition. Okay. I said some. I'm not saying all. See, you cannot discredit everybody. Discredit, like Falana is not a politician. So I cannot just paint everybody the same color.
Yeah,
and I never did.
Say the economy is such that, you don't need any soothsayer to tell you that it's pinching everybody. And maybe what those people are actually doing is giving voice.
Are solutions being proffered? Yes. The president, in his first inaugural address, said, I have seen that subsidy is killing our economy. I'm taking it off. I have seen that subsidy on dollars is... Okay, the idea of somebody today,
yes,
nobody is walking into the central bank to go and collect.
Yes, but you just
become overnight.
You just heard Mr.
We have stopped that.
Mr. Falana, whom you just said is not a politician, recently released a statement asking the federal government to come clean on this issue of subsidy, because now we understand subsidy is back and that the federal government is paying as much, or maybe it's a process of under recovery. But what we now have is a situation whereby subsidy of at least ₦1 trillion every month is being paid. To who or how is unclear, but we know that this is not the price at which petrol is landing in the country. And there are big questions on what is happening with the refineries.
We have reduced importation of fuel to about 50%.
You know that for a fact?
I know that for a fact.
How much? Can you say precisely how many liters were imported?
I cannot say, because I'm not in that industry.
Yeah, but you said.
But what I can tell you, yes, is because there are some local refineries now, Dangote refinery and a host of other smaller refineries that are working. I think what we need to do, I've said it before and I will repeat myself, the government needs to communicate more, engage Nigerians more. You talk about subsidy. Mr. Falana knows. We all know, because we see it on the pages of newspapers, on TV, on radio, every day, the rate of crude, the price of crude in dollars, every day. And if our money, the naira, has lost so much value, and crude is dollarized, evidently, there must be a cushion somewhere. Then, to what extent is that cushioning being done? I can't speak to that. It's somebody who is representing the government that can address that. But my common sense tells me that there is a gap, that because of the pain in the country, the government cannot allow that lacuna to be left unfilled. Hence, government may chip in some amount of money to fill in that gap.
Don't you think that there needs to be transparency in that regard?
I do believe that that needs to be communicated, no doubt about that. That is why it is very important to take the people along step by step, particularly in such area. But in the area of security, it's difficult to come on television or engage people in strategies that the government is deploying or planning to deploy.
Of course not. We don't expect them to
that. But on the issue
strategies
of the economy, I do agree with you that the government should be as transparent as they can possibly be.
Ayo.
Totally.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Ambassador, You know, one of the issues that you agreed with Markwe on is that of security, and you underscored the fact that security needs to be improved upon for us to have the kind of economy that we want. But, you know, there is always a background to everything. We've been hearing of cases of kidnappings as far back as, say, 2009 or even before that. But it got to a head in 2014 that attracted the whole world. You were in Minister of State for Defense in 2014, and it was about the same time in 2014 that the Boko Haram insurgency saw to the abduction of the Chibok school girls. And now you're saying that, and that dust hasn't quite settled. The insecurity of that time seems to has shape-shifted up until this moment that we're talking about now. So what have we missed between then and now? What insight can you give us, particularly of things that have passed? In the 2014 saga in particular, since you were Minister of State at some point in that year, what exactly happened? And what have we missed that we've not been able to track down these insecurity issues until this very moment?
Thank you very much. If I speak to that, oh, okay, you are still, I can't hear you anymore.
No, please go ahead.
If I speak to the issue that you raise, this country will burn, and Nigerians will cry. What led to that unfortunate incident of that kidnapping? But as a statesman, I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I will send a poster to you to take 200 and something girls. We require X number of buses. To take 200 and something restless young girls without being seen, without being heard, will take more than a genius to put together. I will leave the rest to your interpretation. Now, as per where we are, I am totally convinced with the steps that the president is taking and has taken so far. And I do believe that he has put competent people in that area of challenge. Nuhu Ribadu has a proven track record in terms of dedication and loyalty to his job. I do believe this time will not be different.
Well, Ambassador...
And I've seen the effort.
My apologies for butting in. Just a second, Ambassador. You know...
I have seen please, let me finish this thought. Let me finish this thought.
Okay.
Please, if you allow me, I don't want to forget this, please. And I have also, you are writing something. I don't have anything to write with. So I'm just, talking based on the question you are asking me. And I have seen the effort of the military. What I would love is a situation where we reorganize the country in the true sense of reorganization. I see the police, when I saw on TV yesterday, was it yesterday that I saw when the police said they should stop using POS at police station. That was disgraceful. It's not new. Some of us who are close to the grassroots, this has been in existence for quite a long time. And what the police has done is to shift the location of operation because they are not going to stop. You see, you just don't come out, any serious organization, don't just come out and make statements that are unreasonable. You make a good example of those who are doing it. You do a dummy transaction. If you are told, if I were to be IGP today and I'm told that this is going on at police stations, I'm sure he must have been aware because he's been in service forever. If I'm told that this is what is happening in my police station, I will set up a dummy transaction where those individuals who are doing it, whether they are 20, they are 40, are arrested and punished severely, that is a statement that will stop it. Just by issuing a statement on the pages of newspaper and on television, and then that will resolve everything. No! It's like the immigration office. They say you pay X amount into the bank. Next door to every passport office in Nigeria, you have all these officers. They have their own agents there collecting money from people before they can obtain their passports. Are you telling me that security cannot see that? And the police cannot see that? They do. Well, the only question you will ask yourself is that, is this being done in cahoots? Well, I don't have answers to that.
Well, those issues that you have raised, my apologies, yes, those issues that you have raised are quite significant and you know, very important. However, speaking to the security issues again, is that, I mean, as you have said, if we do not resolve these insecurity issues, production might be a challenge. And it's only natural to imagine, how come the states are not able to take the gauntlet? A few of them have come out to say, look, we know the people that are behind this insecurity. One state governor, I don't remember which one in particular, and I think it was either Cardinal Zapara, that had said, look, we know the people behind this particular, I think it was the Dapchi children, school children as well. We know the people that were behind these things and that we can name names. We never heard any name. Just recently, also, Minister of Solid Minerals, Mr. Delelake, came out and said, look, the people who are behind some of these insecurity issues, they are powerful Nigerians. So one wonders then, if these issues are known, if these people are known, how come we have not been able to arrest this situation and continue to put the lives of people in jeopardy? The front page of Daily Trust newspaper this morning talked about more than 100 women who have been abducted. And guess what? As Marquez said this morning, all we hear is news. So is it that this issue is intractable?
We are not a truthful nation. I mean, most of us are not truthful. Let's be honest with ourselves. We are not truthful. If we can be truthful for once, things will get better. I'm glad you raised the issue of governance. You see, before I address that, let me say this. I've been saying it and I will repeat myself. The more we worship people in government, the less value we get. I repeat, the more we worship people in government, the less value you get. Now, let's talk about the issue of governance. I am not I'm not playing favorism here. In fairness, some governors have done outstanding job. And I will, to a reasonable extent, I'm not saying all, and I'm not saying he's perfect. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to a reasonable extent, I will give kudos to the governor of Lagos State for what he is doing and what he has done, and to a reasonable and also to a large extent, I will give kudos to Alex Oti for partnering with BAT to launch that laudable and that legacy project of power project in Aba that was launched last week. These are impactful projects that even before it's taking off, you can tell the kind of impact that such will make. If you go to Lagos today, the blue line is working. This is what they stopped. That's why the Yoruba people, I give kudos to our progenitors when they said, that you can only slow the progress of man, but you cannot reverse it. We celebrated the blue line. Unfortunately, as God will have it, it's the same person that stopped it, that commissioned it. And we just celebrated red line. And when you talk about Lagos as a good example of what is possible in Nigeria, they say, Lagos is too small. But I make bold to say, when George Bush Jr. was president in America, there was an educational program in the city of Chicago that was powered by a Democratic Party. He embraced it and used it nationally as an example of the direction their education should take. Our governors, we must reorganize Nigeria to give governors more responsibilities, and also through laws from the National Assembly, compelled the governors to make local government a living tier of government.
All right, we need to anchor.
That way, the country can make progress. Let me tell you, everybody's looking up to Abuja. We should be able to look up to our local government chairmen, look up to our governors for some of these solutions that the federal government cannot solve.
Yeah,
and that is why,
fact,
they talk about true federalism. I agree. Some of these ways that the constitution that we've been reviewing every year, for financial gains.
As a matter of fact,
the opportunity should be used.
Many are also
to change the country once and for all. Give the local government responsibility. Recruit good Nigerians.
We hear you, Ambassador.
With track record to serve there.
A number of people will.
Governors
we
should be held responsible for some of these things that are going on. Not just federal, as if that is the only tier of government that we have in Nigeria.
And in other words, I mean, the states will have no excuse whatsoever not to follow the Abia Power Project example. It takes only 3 years, as Professor Bat told us. So we're hoping that of course, they have all that information, and we look forward to all of that happening. But I want to thank you for coming on. Ambassador Musiliu Obanikoro, former Nigeria's ambassador to Ghana, also a senator, and also former Minister of State for Defense. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, business news is up next.
Thanks, Chamberlain. Well, good morning, good evening, wherever the world you might be watching from. It's a midweek trading right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's get you the top stories that set your agenda now, starting with the FX markets. Well, the 3-day winning streak snapped in yesterday's close. We see the Naira fell by 4.26% to 1,602 Naira, 43 kobo to the US dollar. That was March 5th, 2024. Compared to 1,534 Naira in the previous session. That's according to data published by the FMDQ. City intraday high was about 1,652 Naira, 40 kobo to the dollar, while the intraday low was 1,450 Naira to the dollar, representing a spread of about 202 Naira to the dollar. Well, we'll find out what's driving sentiment later on the show. Let's get a check on the oil market now. See, oil prices rebounded slightly today after extended declines. Signs of supply tightness amid output cuts by major producers overrode demand growth concerns in China and the U.S. That's the two world's biggest crude consumers. Brent crude futures, we see that's up 22 cents at $82.22 a barrel, while WTI, that's the U.S. grade, that was up by 0.35%, $78.42 a barrel. So we see that seesaw movement there in the oil market. Day before that, it was down, and now we have prices up again after declining in the past 2 days. Let's get a check on the global grain market. Now, Chicago soybean and corn futures were flat today, hovering near 3-year lows ahead of a key USDA report on harvest pressure. We see that continues to drag the markets down. Wheat slipped after ending lower in the previous session. The most active soybean contract on the Chicago Board of Trade, CBOT SV1, held its ground at $11.50 for a quarter of a bushel. CBOT corn CV1 was flat at $4.26 for 3/4 of a bushel, while the wheat WV1, that fell 0.45% at $5.48 for half a bushel. And after some social stories, now see the International Monetary Fund has stressed the need for the federal government to prioritize the full implementation of its cash transfer program to aid vulnerable households before contemplating adjustments to the existing fuel and electricity subsidy framework. That's according to a statement released at the end of its visit to Nigeria. The IMF says the established social safety net program designed to disburse cash transfers to the poor and vulnerable needs to be operational to its fullest capacity. This approach ensures that economically vulnerable segments of the population remain shielded as the government contemplates adjustments to the existing fuel and electricity subsidy framework. It adds that the continuation of capping fuel pump prices and electricity tariffs below their recovery costs could lead Nigeria to incur fiscal costs of up to 3% of its GDP in 2024. And to some company news now, we see the corporate social responsibility arm of MTN Nigeria, that's MTN Foundation, has opened applications for phase 2 of its Yellowpreneur initiative, through which it intends to offer the sum of 450 million naira as loans to successful applicants. The executive director of the foundation announced the opening of applications during a press briefing at the MTN head office. Take a listen.
This media parley, made up of representatives from MTN Foundation, project partners, and journalists, is convened as the foundation commences the second phase of MTN Yellowpreneur, one of the foundation's CSR initiatives that contributes to the reduction in women unemployment.
Understanding the need to support women empowerment in business and provide them with some of the resources, opportunities, protections, and skills they need to achieve their full potential. The board of MTN, therefore, Foundation approved the rollout of the MTN Yellowpreneur.
With capacity building being the focus of Yellowpreneur, the first phase of the program had 4,711 female entrepreneurs trained in the fundamentals of business management and development. Drawing from this success, the foundation decides to increase the stake for prospective participants in the second phase.
In this phase, MTN is investing about 600 million, and of the 600 million, about 450 million is actually for the funding. So that's what will go at 3 million naira each per entrepreneur at 150 women, and that gives you 450 million. And out of the 600 million, 112.5 million is what will be given back as, the grant to the women.
MTN Foundation will execute the second phase of Yellowpreneur along with its implementation partners.
Operations have become, running a business and the operations of running a business has become more difficult. And one thing we want to do is to show these women how to make it faster, easier, and cheaper for them to manage their business.
When you invest in women, you accelerate progress, not just for women, you accelerate progress for the nation.
The application portal for the second phase of Yellowpreneur is open from the 5th of March and targets female entrepreneurs across the country who display passion and commitment to self-employment and run an existing business of at least 2 years. The focus is on businesses that source their raw materials locally.
All right, so we talked about Naira earlier there. We're snapping the 3-day winning streak. Let's bring in Chuka Nwachukwu, Head Asset Balance Sheet Management at UBA. Joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Hello, Chuka. Yeah, you might have to unmute there. All right, Chuka, let's try it again. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, all right, still trying to get Chuka Nwachukwu to get to unmute this time, but we did, talk about Naira that snapped a 3-day winning streak, and definitely we've seen all the moves by the CBN and the federal government to save the Naira at this time, but definitely we've also seen a lot of talk about how Nigeria can stabilize prices at this time, and also get the farmers back to the farm at this time. All right, let's hear what the AFDB president had to say about this.
I don't believe in centralized government. I think that if you even go back to the way you take care of your plants, right? You don't put your fertilizers at the top, you put it under the roots of your plant. And so that tells you that you have to have a situation where the subnationals are better supported than they have been done today. We cannot run agricultural policy centrally from Abuja. We've got to go to exactly where the states are, co-develop with them, co-own it with them, and make sure that the land, the support, the extension services, whatever kind of work, it's actually done together. And I'm using that to make a point because you're talking about almost like devolution and decentralization in a bigger way. That what we need to do is to make sure that the states are better economically empowered to be able to support people within their states, and they should need to be able to expand their fiscal space. I went to a village school, so I know poverty is not statistics, right? It's something you've got to really work in. But that means making agriculture really work. And that's why in Nigeria, the African Development Bank and the Islamic Development Bank and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, we put together a $520 million program to create what's called special agro-industrial processing zones across Nigeria for agriculture, food value addition, and all of that. We have 8 states currently involved, but I got better news for Nigeria. Is that we are working right now with our partners to actually do a second phase of that, which will involve 28 states in the country for a value of $1 billion.
Yeah, that's the AFDB president there, and definitely we know that this headline inflation we see in Nigeria is mostly driven by food inflation at this time at over 33%. So definitely we need to get the farmers back to the farm. But let's head back to the market now, talking about the FX market. We'll have Chuka Nwachukwu join us via Zoom. There's Head Asset and Balance Sheet Management at the UBA. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Yeah, so definitely we're expecting this sustained winning streak for the Naira, but we're seeing it that snapped yesterday. Talk to me about what drove sentiment in the FX market.
Okay, thank you very much. The sentiment has likely been driven by CBN activity. Recall that during the last MPC meeting, the CBN governor spoke on how CBN will intervene, and they've greatly intervened in the market. We've seen the rate drop from 1,800 levels to 1,600, and so that tells the volume of intervention in the market. And so we've seen the sentiment also. Some of the policies that have been put in place, especially as regard the NOP for banks, also the BDC policies are greatly working. The essence of this policy is to ensure that the system continues to be liquid, which obviously is what is happening now. And so as long as this policy continues, and then of course implementation in full compliance, the bank obviously are complying. I do also hope that the BDC people will comply as well, which I think they are. We will continue to see appreciation in the Naira.
Yeah, but from where you're sitting, do you see some kind of appreciation for the Naira this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, as long as CBN maintain this momentum, and then of course banks are complying and all stakeholders are complying, we continue to see appreciation. So, within the shortest period, I believe that we see around 1,400, 1,300 levels as it were.
Yes, and all of us are also hoping for that 700 Naira level at some point, hopefully. So let's talk about the FGN Savings bond auction for this month. That's the third one for this year. How did it go?
So that was last week. There were 2 maturities on offer, 2031 and then 2034. We saw the 2031 close at 18.5, and then 2034 closed at 19% levels. This obviously has to do with let me put it this way, this is the high yield levels, right? Due to the MPC activity, especially the monetary policy rate increase from 18.5 to 22.5. And that's obviously means that most of the instruments in the fixed income market will continue to go up. For example, we've seen NTB came out last week auction at 19% for 1 year. And then also the OMO auction, which also came out on Friday, was printed around 21.5. And so this is the level, this is the season where we get to see high yields. And of course, investors will always demand for higher yield in order to make it attractive to invest.
And talking about moves by the MPC and the central bank governor, yeah, we've seen rates now over 20%. That's the MPR rate, and we're seeing CRR at about 45%. When do you think we'll start to feel the impact of the last meeting on the markets?
I think the market has reacted. If you see what is happening on the fixed income side, for example, I just mentioned that we've seen that the yield rate has greatly elevated, and so this will continue. The only the only downside, is the fact that the system is in repo. The system liquidity is pretty tight. As at last night, it was around 612 billion negative, and so that obviously we are impacting the market negatively, especially with the auction coming in today. But again, it's also still in line with the CBN objective. The essence of increasing the MPR is also to mop up excess liquidity because of the worry on the high, skyrocketing inflation figures. And so this, the policies is beginning to yield results on the fixed income market, and then as well as the liquidity impact in the system.
And talking about, liquidity, excess liquidity at this point, would you say we're starting to see all of that being mopped up, at this time? And looking at that CRR ratio there, talking about 45% hike. Now, what do you think, or how do you think the banks are looking at this, in 2024, so that they're still able to give out credit, going forward? Because at the end of the day, we know businesses are going through a lot, right now, and they're definitely going to need credit. So how are the banks, looking at this?
So the essence of the 45% increment in MPR, CRL, is also to fight excess liquidity, and then, but on one hand, also to assist the bank in terms of managing better management of liquidity. So in a short term, the policy will hurt banks because banks will need to adjust, especially regarding liquidity. System has also been tight due to before the MPC, they've always been CRL debit, and then so that also have helped to mop up the liquidity in the system, as well as the traditional OMO auction. The essence of the OMO also is to mop out liquidity in the system. So for me, I think the bank in the short while, the policy will affect banks, and then of course high interest rate will also affect some businesses. But in the long run, it's going to be win-win situation for everybody, especially as regards the economy, because I think the part of what government is trying to do is to kickstart the economy through the through the medium scale businesses, to encourage them to be able to invest, in some of the activities that will affect the common man directly. And so, by and large, I believe that going into second quarter or third quarter, we'll begin to see the result of this government policy.
And going forward, what are you seeing, for that, for the rate, environment? That's talking about lending rates. Do you see this elevated, for longer, going forward in Nigeria?
I think what the CBN is trying to do is to most of the policy now is to gain confidence in the system, and that's what the governor said. And then secondly, to ensure that the inflation figures, and thirdly, also to ensure that the economy is kickstarted. Now, on the issue of lending rate, yes, we will definitely see adjustment in the lending rate, which to some extent will affect some businesses, but on a long run is a win-win situation for everyone. But again, the issue as regard the FX is not only the monetary side of it. CBN is obviously doing its own part, which is monetary, but of course the physical angle will also have to be sorted out. For example, if you drill down the inflation figure that came out, you see that the food inflation is still going up, and so that obviously has to do with insecurity. And then that obviously falls to the fiscal side of policy. So if that is addressed, then we begin to see more farmers go to the farm. We begin to see farm produce, come into the end users, and then prices will start dropping. But for CBN, I think they've done extremely well, and they continue to do what is expected of them in terms of monetary. They can't really have much to do as regard the physical aspect of things.
Right, and we're definitely hoping that we win this battle when it comes to inflation and currency devaluation at this time. I want to thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Chuka Nwachukwu, Head Assets and Balance Sheet Management at UBA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ladi. Thank you so much.
All right, so on to our next conversation now. We're talking about getting stable power in Nigeria. And let's find out what our participants, as private sector participants, can do about getting us stable power, because power has not been great for a couple of days now and weeks now. Peter Ikenga joins me now, MD, Transco Power PLC. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, so finally, definitely you got listed, recently you've gone public, at this time. Talk to me about how this feels, for you as a company, and what we can expect.
So this is truly an exciting time for us at Transco Power. We got listed on Monday on the main board of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We came in at the market capitalization valuation of 1.8 trillion. We immediately got embraced by the market. On the first day of listing, within 10 minutes, we had seen a capital appreciation of 10%. We sustained that performance yesterday, additional 10% yesterday. So truly it's exciting for us. Transco Power acquired Ughelli Power Plant in 2013, and on 1st of November marked our 10 years anniversary, first decade of impact. Now we're writing the history for the next decade, and the listing is a good way to segue into our future.
Quite an interesting one. But at the end of the day, I'm sure Nigerians are quite curious, about this time, because we want, stable, power supply, and we know definitely the government has done, what it can, at this time, and we're now looking towards the private sector. How much can the private sector contribute, to actually make this a reality? Because we want to be a producer nation, and we can't do that without stable power.
Yeah, indeed. So I think it takes a village to raise a child. And so collaboration between government and private sector is the way to go, which is how things are going. So you recall that just last year the president signed the Electricity Act into law, and this has opened up the sector for broader participation. So it's an exciting time for us. So for us at Transco Power, we see opportunity now with the liberalization of the electricity sector. We're making investment plans to maximize the capacity in our existing plant in Ughelli. We have plans around expanding our capacity, going into renewables, targeting the underserved population. Electricity penetration in Nigeria is about 50-60%, so there's still an underserved population. So we see opportunity in those areas as well. Right. And of course, the conversation around renewables, hydro, and all of that. So you're going to see increased investment. We're going to see increased collaboration right now, because now we can directly sell power directly to the discos. So it makes it easy and easier to manage the value chain from generation all the way to distribution.
All right, let's look at some data from the MBS now. Looking at electricity supply, in Nigeria, we see in the third quarter of 2023, what about 5,731 gigawatt hour? That was what was supplied in the third quarter of 2023. If you can put up that data. The second quarter of 2023, 5,909. Then Q3 2022, we see was much lower there, 5,023. Talking about electricity supply, in Nigeria, we got that data from the MBS. That's the last one. We see estimated customers, third quarter, 6.03 million. Those are the ones still on estimated billing, at this time. Second quarter, 6 million. So we see that number actually, increasing. But, talk to me about, the growth strategy now for, Transcorp Power. How do you intend to take this number from about 5,000 gigawatts hour even higher?
So I think one is improved collaboration across the entire value chain, working with the discos to ensure that customers, consumers actually do receive power when we generate in the grid. The next bit is around capacity. It's continue to grow the capacity. Historically, there's been challenges around collection within the sector, and all of that is improving now. And so we are at the crossroads whereby we see that things are going to improve for the better. The numbers are looking better. There's still some required investment, especially around gas supply within the sector, especially for thermal plants. It remains a big challenge. But beyond all of that, there's opportunity now because of the way the sector is going to be liberalized. And there are creative ways in which we can get power to consumers in a very creative manner, right, to ensure that we have sustained supply of power to critical sectors of the economy, because you require power to transform our economy and to get Nigeria back to where it needs to be.
All right, talk to me about your expectations now. What kind of impact you'd have, on power generation in Nigeria, and give us some, paint a picture of the timeline we can, look forward to.
So today, Transcorp Power has an installed capacity of 972 megawatts. We currently have 7% of the installed capacity in the country, but we actually do generate about 10% of all the electricity in the grid. So we are already contributing more than our fair share. We're going to continue to improve that performance. We're going to sustain our growth within the market. We want to be a dominant player in the market, ultimately. So I think for us is increase in investment. We also a member of the West Africa Power Pool, so we actually do cross-border sales of electricity across the border as well. So there's opportunity for us to actually expand even beyond the shores of Nigeria. We currently export power to the West ECOWAS region at the moment, so we continue to deepen our play. There's possible collaboration with states, conversations around hydroelectricity and other forms of renewables. So I think for us it's truly an exciting time, and once we get there, we'll be here to share our story.
And I'm sure some investors will be excited with this new listing. But talk to me about how you're going to make investors even more excited going forward.
Oh yeah. So I think for investors, this is an exciting time. So you have to look at our track record. So over the last 5 years, we've consistently grown our revenue, compounded annual growth rate of about 20%. Our profit before tax has grown consistently over the last 5 years as well. So you're going to see a sustained performance, sustaining our growth trajectory. In a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be releasing our audited financial statements for 2023. And I can just say that's beautiful, great numbers. So I think investors will see a company that truly has a transformation story. We took over a plant that had a generation of 160 megawatts in 2013. Within a span of 4 years, we made strategic investments in that asset, recovered capacity, took it over 700 megawatts generation. So it's truly a story of transformation, and that performance is going to be sustained. And who other than now to invest in Transcorp Power?
Right.
Yes.
And we're definitely hoping for one day Nigeria, we can boast of 24-hour power, going forward, and we can, get our industries roaring again. Thank you so much.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Thank you so much for coming on. That's Mr. Peter Ikenga, MD, Transcorp Power PLC. It was great having you today.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, there you have it, and that's how the markets are looking today. We're definitely looking out for how most of the markets we track here close in Nigeria for the midweek trading session. So that's the show today. Thank you so much for watching. I now hand things over to our Sunrise Daily team.
Interview will be coming up now, but yes, colleague, did have that sit down with the president of AFDB. Very interesting one, I tell you. Ayo, in that particular, that's a number of issues at the time too. So I imagine that Ayo, when he sat down and had that interview with him, must have raised issues of agriculture. I've spoken about the policies of the government, which we took up Senator Obanikoro on some of them, how they intend to ensure that we get it right. So the former deputy governor to the CBN also spoke in that summit they had yesterday about it. So who knows? Those are some of the issues that he took him up on when he spoke today.
Well, you certainly cannot take away the passion, that Mr. Akinwumi Adesina always brings to bear. Every single opportunity he gets, he seeks to inspire and he seeks to move the people to, explore the potential in this country. Just this morning, we saw on the front pages of one of the dailies, I think it was Nigerian Tribune, him talking about why Africa remains poor in spite of its multi-trillion naira wealth.
Yeah.
I am sure you must have been able to explore some of that, and I'm sure that his passion must have really been very infectious when he was speaking to you.
Doubt, Markwe, it was. You can't take away that passion, because the first question that I asked him will intrigue you. I'll let you listen to it. But in this interview, Chairman and Markwe, 3 subjects were covered. First of all, the fact that he's collecting the Awolowo Leadership Award today. We talked about the state of the nation, particularly in the area of agriculture. And don't forget, his passion for Nigerian youths. That's also part of the package, Chamberlain.
I do remember at the time remember that cassava bread?
Oh, I can never forget.
Where is it now?
How he so passionately marketed that bread.
Goodness.
I mean, all that was left was for him to bake it personally and bring it to the studios. That was how passionate he was about it. And also rice. Nigerian rice, how he also marketed that very passionately, trying to get the whole country to eat what we produce. So, I mean, it's no surprise that he's getting this award. And I know that even at the AFDB, he hasn't forgotten where he's from. You know, every single policy that the AFDB is coming up with is ensuring that Nigeria is also benefiting from this and pushing us to do so much more. Talk about the agro-processing zones, which I think we should be seeing materialize anytime soon. So, what are we still waiting for? Why are we playing this interview right now?
So he'll always tell you, in spite of the potentials, people don't eat potential. Let's have a listen to the interview.
Traditionally, you have one of the craziest schedules in the world, don't you? How do you rest?
I think when you have a responsibility to take care of 1.4 billion people, you don't have the luxury of resting that much.
Wow. So one would naturally want to ask a number of questions along that line, but that's definitely one leadership role that I don't think many people envy. Because, I mean, some would remember some of the challenges that you had, maintaining this office and all of that. And then this Our Leadership Award thing came. How did you receive it? How did you receive the news of the announcement?
Well, I have, by God's grace, gotten so many global awards, but this is completely different. Completely different because it's one award that I've been given that I'm very emotional about. I'm very emotional because it's deeply personal for me. Because it was because of the amazing leadership, vision, and public policies, welfareist policies of late Papa Obafemi Awolowo, that I was able to go to school. And so if I didn't go to school because he ran free education all across Western region, you probably would not be interviewing me today. And so I admire him, and I am like him, somebody who loves welfareist policies, who put the interests of people at the heart of every single thing that I do. So when I was awarded this Award Prize for Leadership, I was humbled, I was inspired, and I just see it as, I guess, another responsibility on my shoulder that there's still much to do to be able to improve opportunities for all, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa and the world.
How does this differ strategically? You said it's an emotional one for you, but what's the strategic difference it makes to you?
Well, the strategic difference it makes to me is, first and foremost, it tells me that the kind of poverty that we have requires a different way of actually dealing with it. We have a lot of structural poverty in Africa. And the challenges we still have in terms of kids out of school, the fact that we still have a big part of our population without good health care, which are the things that he cared a lot about, which I care about, at the African Development Bank. So it's more like an infusion of greater strength and motivation for me to continue to do the things that I've always been doing, even as president of the African Development Bank. But more than any award, that brings that into focus for me, because that's exactly who late Chief Obafemi Awolowo was. So for me, it's a call to do more. And I guess as a leader, I always like to hold myself accountable for things. I don't think, to your question earlier on, I don't think leaders have the luxury of jubilation. Leaders have, the only luxury they have is to execute.
Okay. Remembering Chief Obafemi Awolowo, transiting that kind of leadership into this generation, do you see a challenge, or are we still in our learning ropes?
Well, I think the question that we ask is, what are the challenges that needs to be surmounted? And then the kind of leadership that needs to be prepared to do that. I think today the challenges are, pretty much quite difficult challenges. You have big macroeconomic issues that one has to tackle. You have fiscal challenges that countries are going through because of the issue of COVID, which pulled economics back and fiscal space got contracted. You still have challenges in terms of access to health, big challenges in terms of youth unemployment, which is very, very high that we have. Now you have other challenges in terms of security, which is all different challenges that we have today. But good leaders should not be really disturbed by challenges. I think the job of a leader is to assess them, is to be prepared for them, but it's to be relentless in solving them. So I think the principles are the things that I can garner, I guess, from Papa Awolowo and other leaders, is the ability to stay focused, ability to put people at the center of public policy, ability to be impatient with underdevelopment, the ability to make sure that whatever we do, we constantly improving the lives and quality of life of our people. I always say that, for me, the thing that I always say is that poverty should not be a comparative advantage, neither of Nigeria, nor even be a comparative advantage of Africa. So I think leadership is not so much sometimes about your head, because you use your head to think, but good leaders must lead always from their heart, which is always putting people first. And that is what I think, that we need to make that kind of a shift, that it's not about you. A leader is an instrument for change. It's about the people the leader is supposed to serve.
You see, this leadership from the heart is another subject altogether. We'll come to some other time. But when you raise the issue of macroeconomic policies, a good number of economists have raised questions around the quarrel, or so to speak, between fiscal and monetary policies. And some have also praised this administration and saying, okay, there is some effort, I'm talking about Nigeria now, some effort to realign so that there is that collaboration. How well would you say that is going? Speak particularly to one of your areas of passion, which is agriculture. How well would you say that is going? that collaboration, that realignment, so to speak?
Well, it's like driving a car. You ask the question whether you need a steering wheel and you need a clutch, or something. So you have to be synchronized. Different institutions have different responsibilities. But at the end of the day, for any economy to really grow, you need to have macroeconomic stability. So keeping inflation down is very, very important. Making sure that interest rates are also well managed, so you can actually have people who actually make investments that is very important for them. And the exchange rate in such a way that you manage it both to make sure that you can increase the export competitiveness of the economy. So there's quite a lot of things to do on the macroeconomic side, but also on the fiscal side is you have to expand the fiscal space. You have to make sure people pay taxes, and that's very important for everybody to do. We have to make sure that we are getting what we should be getting from the royalties and taxes of natural resources that we have in abundance, and several other fiscal instruments that one can use, including actually having a lot of efficiency in public expenditure. It's not just the money you spend, but whether you're spending the right things and spending efficiently and cutting back the cost of governance. Those things are very important. So that synchronization of macroeconomic and fiscal policy is absolutely very important. But you raise the issue of food. And I think that in the case of food, what you find in the world, there have been a series of challenges that have actually led to increasing prices of food globally. One is climate change, and which has disrupted quite a lot of production in many parts of the world that used to be met, and surplus producers of food. They've been affected significantly. The second is you have another challenge with geopolitical risk issues, and you have a war between Russia and Ukraine, and Africa dependent on a lot of import of wheat and maize from those two countries, which again pushed up the price of food. And thirdly is the fact that you also have domestically quite a lot of, in the case of Nigeria, I'm talking about challenges with insecurity that makes it very difficult for people to go to the farm. And so, but I really applaud the efforts being made on the macroeconomic side. I think the Minister of Finance did his best also on the fiscal side. And we are very, very supportive, of course, of Nigeria, both of them. And of course, the President. I am fully committed to supporting myself personally, but also the bank. But however, when it comes to the issue of food, the key is you look at the consumer price index and you find that the price of food is probably 65%, 70% of your consumer price index. And so what you want to do, therefore, it's not about, in this particular case, tightening money supply that's going to solve that particular problem. I'm talking that particular case of that. What's going to solve it is a structural issue, which is simply producing a lot of food. Okay. And here, I want to say that we are really supporting Nigeria big time in dealing with this particular issue. At the African Development Bank, we made available $134 million to Nigeria for an emergency food production program, which has started. It's not what we want to do, it's what we've already started. We supported Nigeria. My team were all over the north of Nigeria for the last 4 weeks, and we have supported the cultivation or the planting of 118,000 hectares of wheat in the country. And then we also followed that in March with the cultivation of another 150,000 hectares of rice. And so by the time you go to the rainy season starts in May and all of those, we are going to support Nigeria to plant 300,000 hectares of rice, 300,000 hectares of maize. We're going to help Nigeria to plant 150,000 hectares of cassava and 50,000 metric tons of hectares of soybean. What that means is that, by the end of March this year, Nigeria will get through those interventions 1 million metric tons of food. And we had an additional 4 million metric tons of food coming. So I think that the way to do that, in my view, is to support farmers, to have access to high-yielding seeds and fertilizers, but they got to be able to get it. It doesn't matter if you're sick and somebody recommends something for you to go to the pharmacy, but the patient can't get it. That patient is going to die or be very, very sick. And so I think that the most important thing is to make sure that in public policy, the seeds, the fertilizers, and all the support, the farmers get them directly. When I was minister here, we had what was called the electronic wallet system that allowed farmers to get access to their seeds and fertilizers via their mobile phones. I was in Bayero University where they gave me a honorary doctorate just the 2nd of March. And so many of them were asking, we really want to have this back. And I think this is very important, making sure that the seeds and fertilizers get in the hands of those farmers. And of course, that insecurity issues are tackled so that farmers can go to their farms and produce. I have no doubt at all that Nigeria will be able to have a good bumper harvest from these interventions, but more still needs clearly to be done. But one more thing I would just say on the macroeconomic side is that over time the country had been using a lot of its foreign exchange to basically defend the naira, prop up the naira. Okay, so when we prop up the naira, you give it an overvalued. It's overvalued in a sense, and what that actually does is that it makes your imports cheaper. When your imports are cheaper, it actually hurts you in the sense that your domestic production then gets now competitive with the imported one. And secondly, is that it also does not help you in terms of your non-oil sector that you need to be looking at, because they are priced not in dollars, but they are priced in local currency. And so you're competing with various countries. So it's very important that the non-oil sector be made competitive to be able to export. And lastly is you just simply are depleting your forex, but you're not adding more. You're not adding more. So it's like you have a funnel, right? And you're squeezing at the bottom of the funnel, right? You need more going into the funnel. And I have said, and I will continue to say that the way to solve this problem in the medium and the long term is for Nigeria to have an export-oriented industrial manufacturing stance that allows it to be able to specialize in particular areas, in which it can earn a lot of money. I applaud Aliko Dangote for what it's doing on the petrochemical side. Or IT side is there, food and ag is there, the creative industry is there, several other industries are there. All I'm simply saying is that we need to earn a lot of foreign exchange to fill that funnel, not just squeeze what's left.
From where you sit, as a former minister and as a Nigerian, what do you think is our challenge in the area of sustaining food production and value-added food production, which is what the president has also been talking about?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, to have the right policies. If you have the right policies to put the farmers at the center, everything should work.
Do you think we have the right policies?
Well, I think, sometimes it's not even the policies, how you execute the policies. People don't eat policies, they eat food. And so your ability to translate policies into real things on the ground is the most important thing. I think secondly also is the need to have a lot more finance. Agriculture, as I always say when I was minister here, it's not a way of life, it's a business, right? It's a value chain, okay? So you have to make sure that those primary producers can produce a lot more food. Those that are storing can do that. The logistics and transport, getting it now is very important. Those that are going to process and add value to food, that are going to sell in supermarket and package and everything like that. It's a whole thing. So you've got to be able to finance the entire value chain, and that's why, I was, I worked to help to create NISO, Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk Sharing for Agricultural Lending, together with the then Central Bank Governor, Sanusi Lamido, and of course, the then Managing Director of Access Bank, Ike Imokwe. We worked on it and created NISO. It was fantastic. NISO, when I was here, was doing what it was supposed to do. It de-risked lending by all the banks to the agricultural sector. It moved lending as a share of total portfolio in Nigeria to agriculture from 0.7% to 5% in a period of 4 years. And the non-performing loans were less than 1%. So, but subsequently, of course, it lost its way. It was not done the right way. It was mismanaged. And that's why, I think the president is trying to refocus it. And I think the central bank governor is trying to refocus it because it's actually an excellent program. Because the same thing is being done in several other countries, and it works. That brings me to the issue of infrastructure. It doesn't matter whether it's agriculture, or whether it's small businesses, whether it's oil and gas, whether you're in the creative industry or digital economy. You can't do anything without electricity. And so I think that we've got to solve the electricity problem. And it's not brain surgery to solve that particular problem. I don't know why we are content with having maybe 4,000 or 5,000 megawatts of electricity. We should be talking about no less than 70 to 80, if not 90,000 megawatts as a country for electricity. So we are committed at the African Development Bank to build support around this government, around the policies to be able to do that. Finally, it's the fact that, when you one of the famous things that when I go back and think about Papa Awolowo, it is some phenomenal things that are agriculture, but I want to link that agriculture to rural development. Because at the end of the day, you see, whatever we do as leaders, we've got to realize that 70% of our population, if not more, are actually in the rural areas. So we cannot have, we have to make sure that the source of their livelihoods, which is agriculture, is a wealth-creating sector. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck in poverty for life. Their generations are going to be stuck in poverty for life. You know, I went to a village school, so I know poverty is not statistics, right? It's something you've got to really work in. But that means making agriculture really work. And that's why in Nigeria, the African Development Bank and the Islamic Development Bank and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, we put together a $520 million program to create what's called special agro-industrial processing zones across Nigeria for agriculture, food value addition, and all of that. We have 8 states currently involved, but I got better news for Nigeria. Is that we are working right now with our partners to actually do a second phase of that, which will involve 28 states in the country for a value of $1 billion US. What this will do is it will turn the rural economy around completely. It will create new zones for fiscal expansion for Nigeria. It will create massive amount of jobs. It will make sure that whatever we produce, we are not losing. And we allow us to have good value chains, whether it's for rice, for cassava, for whatever you want to have it, where you can build platforms that can allow you to launch into the global market in a cost-competitive way. So all I'm trying to say is, maybe I'll bring it back to what you were saying about the macroeconomic and fiscal issue earlier on. When you have the structural issues like that, and you link it with good fiscal policies, right, and the fact that these are done to give you export orientation, you suddenly explode in terms of earnings of foreign exchange, and that helps Naira, and that helps the economy.
You put out a video back then, and there are a number of people who say that young people, who said at the time that young people should not waste a crisis. The challenge that a number of people have also brought up on that is that of leadership among the young people. How do we galvanize young Nigerians and use the youth bulge that you said in that video more constructively, as opposed to being almost like no particular direction?
Well, you know, the important thing is to make space for young people. If you want them to really lead, then make space for them, right? Second,
how do we do that?
Well, you actually just empower them and create more economic opportunities, political space open to them, right? You go around the world, you find young people in major leadership positions.
So you expect that the political parties will find a way to create such a thing for young people?
I think that when you have a population, a country where about 65 to 70% of the population is less than the age of 35, you should create those opportunities for them at all levels, you know, because, you know, fundamentally, I believe that Africa today, you know, we have 477 million young people below the age of 35. Well, that means that Africa has a demographic advantage. But what is happening today is that a lot of those are now moving to, you see all the things sometimes you see on the vision on the Mediterranean Sea trying to go to Europe. You know, I don't believe that the future of Africa lies in Europe. I don't think it lies in the United States. I don't think it lies in Asia, Latin America, or anywhere for that matter. I think it lies in an Africa that must be growing very well.
But they have to see hope.
Yes, but you have to grow the economy for that hope to happen, right? And you cannot externalize your own responsibility to others, hoping that others will simply absorb the huge amount that you have. So for me, I think what we ought to do is, you know, I go around and people tell me a lot about youth empowerment. Well, we've got a youth empowerment program there, youth empowerment program there. But I've not seen that many people, young people, come to me and say to me, we've been empowered, right? So I assume that a lot of people that want to empower them are probably empowering themselves. No, the reason I say that is that the young people don't need this so-called empowerment, give away mindset. No, they need serious investment. We have missing financial institutions. We have market failure. To have 477 million people that are in Africa, young people, brilliant, idealistic, entrepreneurial, dynamic, driven, but there's no financial system around them. People always say, okay, we do more technical and vocational education. We at the bank, we support technical and vocational education. So do other people. But I always ask the question, after additional vocational training, then what? I'm looking for money to set up a business. So that is why after taking a look at it at the African Development Bank, I made the decision that we need to correct for that missing institution and the market failure, because the current commercial banking system is not going to deal with that for us. So we decided to help to create now what's called youth entrepreneurship investment banks. They are new financial institutions completely, but are going to create a new financial ecosystem around the businesses of young people. And they will be run as first-rate financial institutions, but just for young people. Just look at the market size that I'm talking about. Technical assistance for them, business development services for them, business incubation services for them, accelerator programs for them, a mixture of debt and equity along the business life cycle of their businesses. So it's not like, oh, I give you some loan today, and tomorrow you come and say, oh, forget it, you can go away. No, we're going to stay with them, and we started that. We approved the first one for Liberia last year for $16 million. We're going to do close to almost 10 this year with approval of our board, and including one in Nigeria. I discussed that also with Excellency President Bola Tinubu. He was excited about it. So we're working to make sure we can do that in Nigeria to create these enormous opportunities. Then I also say two things to you about why we should be supporting young people. If you don't support young people today, who's going to be paying the taxes tomorrow? And so therefore we have to make sure that we are building youth-based wealth. We have to build youth-based wealth in a very, very purposeful way, to turn what it is, a demographic asset, into an economic advantage for Nigeria and indeed for Africa.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it. And congratulations on the AWO Leadership Award.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. I'm humbled and greatly honored by it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wow, so lovely one, very interesting. So the youth-based approach. So it's always a thing. I mean, all of those potential that we have, we need to leverage on that. And it's a very important part, because we see people writing about that as well. But the question is, we hope the authorities are listening, actually.
Indeed, and him receiving the AWO Award, certainly very well deserved. I mean, he talking about the legacy of Chief Awolowo and the fact that he's always admired him as a leader. Something immediately came to me, and it's interesting, he was Nigeria's former Minister of Agriculture, that leaders plant seeds, the shades of whose trees they might never sit under. I think that our leaders need to ask themselves big questions. Don't forget that even Senator Obanikoro also mentioned the fact that the golden era of governance is still in the 50s and the 60s, when we look to those leaders whose work and the benefit of, whose labor we're still reaping till today. We need to ask our leaders and ourselves too, what seeds we're planting today, the trees of which we might never sit, but which will certainly benefit our children in the future. A really good interview, Ayo.
Well, thank you. One of the things that stands out for me, as you have also highlighted, is the youth elements. All of the business is wonderful, but he said, if we don't develop the young people today, who is going to be paying the taxes tomorrow? In other words, without developing the youth today, we're literally killing our future. And as Markwell, as you have said, I just sincerely hope that everyone who needs to listen is listening, not just at the federal level, but at the state levels, as well as the local government. It's very, very important for us to pay attention to that demography right this very moment.
Let me see if I can rush through this comment. It's from Dixon. He says, it's so unfortunate that Nigeria, under the president, has moved from fuel importation to crude oil importation, as Dangote refinery had to import crude oil from other countries to be refined in Nigeria. Most unfortunately is the backdrop of the fact that Nigeria has about the largest deposits of crude in Africa. If the refineries that the NLC has been crying to come on stream are, we're going to be importing crude with the dollar crisis to service them, he said, he's asking, how are we going to be doing that? Well, he raises more questions, saying that NNPC had mortgaged the Nigeria crude for about 15 years for the $3 billion oil service loan and were faced with the current impasse. President Tinubu should investigate this mortgaging deal with a view to revisiting it if it means well for the country. Well, that's from Dixon. Thank you for your mail. Thank you for everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Lusol. Goodbye.
Thank you. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And Amaya Makinde. Do have a productive day.